Am I?
And CEO of the Brisbane Chamber of Commerce. And I'd like to welcome you this evening to our Candidates Forum, moderated by the League of Women Voters. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters, the City of Brisbane, and Peninsula TV for their assistance this evening. Recordings of tonight's event will be available afterwards in English and in Spanish if we can get the translations to work. On the city's YouTube channel and will be played back on channel 27. As a reminder, the Brisbane Chamber of Commerce is a non-political organization and does not support or endorse candidates. Rather, we seek to provide our members and the community at large with the information that they need to make informed decisions. With that, I'd like to introduce Ann Cutchins from the League of Women Voters, who will go over the protocol for tonight's event.
Good evening. I'm Ann Cutchins, a member of the League of Women Voters of North and Central San Mateo. I will be your moderator for this Brisbane City Council Candidate Forum. Thank you to the Brisbane Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this forum tonight. First, I have a few announcements. Virtual candidate forums have some unique features, but we think we've designed a process for using the conferencing apps that will give everyone a good experience and follow the League of Women Voters' long-standing and well-received process. There is a host, timekeeper, and a moderator for this candidate forum. The host tonight is Caroline Cheung. The host is responsible for managing the virtual meeting. Video for the audience is turned off by default. The only video that is enabled is for the candidates, the moderator, and the timer, who will be giving the candidates time cues. The audience is also inaudible. This is to allow the candidates to speak without interruption. The Brisbane Chamber of Commerce solicited questions from this forum, and we will be asking those questions tonight. I would like to introduce our Spanish interpreter, Martha Bookbinder. Marta was raised in El Salvador and is a member and former president of the League of Women Voters of North and San Mateo. To hear this forum in Spanish, click the interpretation button, which can be found in your meeting controls at the bottom of your screen. Select Spanish. If you do not want to hear the English in the background, select Mute Original Audio. No campaign literature or other material, including campaign promoting background photos, is permitted within the meeting. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization of both women and men, whose purpose is to promote active and informed participation in government. We appreciate the interest and efforts of groups such as the Brisbane Chamber of Commerce in presenting events that increase voters' knowledge about the candidates and issues. The purpose of a candidate forum is to provide an opportunity for all the candidates to be heard at one time and to be questioned. We hope that by bringing the candidates together, voters will be better informed and will make wise decisions when they vote. We appreciate your interest in tuning in to learn more about the candidates. Tonight, we will hear from the candidates for the Brisbane City Council. There are 5 candidates for 3 seats. The term of office is 4 years. The candidates in alphabetical order are Karen Cunningham, Cliff Lentz, Colleen Mackin, Jason Noonan, and Arthur Sun. The rules for the forum are as follows. Opening statements. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement. Question period. During the question period, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. All candidates will have an equal time to speak to the question. Closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Our timekeeper is also our host and is Carol Belknap. Carolyn will hold up warning signs that are visible to the candidates but not to the audience. As the moderator, I reviewed over 70 questions submitted, and I selected questions on a wide range of topics. In some cases, questions were combined as they were on the same topic. Now, with opening statements. The candidates have drawn lots to determine the order in which they will speak. Each candidate has 3 minutes for the opening statement. Our first candidate is Jason Noonan.
Good evening. My thanks to the League, the Chamber, and all of you watching this evening. My name is Jason Noonan, and I'm a candidate for City Council. My name may be unfamiliar to many of you because I'm a newcomer who moved to this coast 3 years ago after working as director of restaurants at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I headed up 3 venues at the museum with revenues totaling $16 million. There are a lot of moving parts with 3 restaurants, and my work included staffing, hiring, budgeting, and even union negotiations. Friends living on Klamath Street introduced us to Brisbane, and we right away fell in love with the houses, the stars, and the mountain, and we never looked at any other place to live. The mountain is a big part of what makes Brisbane so special, along with the wonderful people I've come to know while volunteering and hiking. As a newcomer, I didn't plan on running for council and offered to be on a committee, but unfortunately the pandemic put a stop to that. But when I heard about the city's plan to build a new roadway that would allow massive construction in the lower acres of San Bruno Mountain, I felt I simply had to run. City Council should seek to preserve the lower acres in partnerships with land trusts and park agencies. This has not been attempted, but it can be done. It is a matter of political will. Years ago, city leaders in Brisbane did just that with the upper acres, urged on by our local activist David Schooley. Just last year, protection was achieved in South San Francisco's Sign Hill when they partnered with San Mateo County Parks and the Liberty Foundation. Some with the city have said privately, don't worry about it. No permits have been filed, but it's only a matter of time. The city has approved zoning for up to 30 structures. Natural wildlife, including owls, hawks, foxes, and coyotes, will lose their homes and die, or be forced down into residential areas. Construction increases fire danger, according to the Sierra Club and other environmentalists. The mountain is unstable and subject to erosion. I know all too well about the landslides that happened here in the past and the damage they caused. Over 200 of us have signed a petition circulated by our group, Save the Acres. The Sierra Club, I'm sorry, I skipped a line. Many of you worry about the increased traffic on our streets. You worry about the buffer zone between wilderness and our homes has decreased while the fire risk has increased. And because you care, I hope you'll vote for me. I may be a newcomer to this town, but sometimes that's exactly what it takes to look at things from a fresh perspective. Sometimes it takes a newcomer to remind people what they have is special and that it should never be taken for granted. My name is Jason Noonan, and I hope that you vote for me.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Colleen Mackin.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. I wonder how many of you, when Brisbane elections roll around, go to your neighbors and say, you ought to run for council. Be honest, I'll bet there's a lot of you. I did that all the time. And if you did that, you know the usual response. You've got to be kidding. And the no way. So imagine my surprise when this time around people started telling me, you need to run for council. I'd seen so many versions of eye rolling, I knew how to react. Well, until one day I heard from our council member and former mayor, Clark Conway. Turns out Clark also wanted to tell me, you need to think about running for the council. That really stopped me in my tracks. He said he'd watched me over the years on committees and commissions and serving on the planning commission. He said he knew that, like him, I was a public servant and understood the meaning of that. And when Clark said he planned to retire from the council, I was dumbstruck. So feeling the tug of public service, here I am tonight. Let me tell you about myself and what I bring to the table. I've lived in Brisbane longer than anywhere else in my life. 20 years ago, when I moved here, a neighbor told me I should go to council meetings if I wanted to know more about Brisbane. I was hooked. I wanted to know the history behind the issues, and I had questions. Why? I'm naturally inquisitive, and I have a journalism background. I'm used to digging for answers. And then I wanted to know how things worked at City Hall. Why? Because I was an operations manager. Instinctively, I look at systems and procedures. What followed was a year on the San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury. I got a stellar education on how the county functions. 3 years on the Complete Streets Committee, a year on the committee that studied the DEIR for the Baylands, now 4 years on the Planning Commission. That's 9 years of public service. When I signed on to the Planning Commission, I vowed to ask the hard questions that weren't being asked. I don't make decisions without going deep into research. I weigh different opinions, and I try to find balance to work for everybody. Most importantly, I stay open-minded. These are the attributes I bring to the council, along with experience, a love for the work, and a deep commitment to serve you well. Thank you for taking the time to submit questions. I hope my answers are informative and help you get to know me better.
Thank you. We will now hear from Arthur Sun.
Thank you, Anne. Hello, Brisbane. Thank you for joining us tonight. I am Arthur Sun. My family and I have lived in Brisbane for 11 years. We love Brisbane. My kids are going to BS, and my oldest son recently graduated from Lippman. I am running for Brisbane City Council because I believe that we, as a community, can work together in unity and solidarity to build a brighter Brisbane, clean, healthy Brisbane, and manage sustainable growth while maintaining small community culture. I hope to earn your vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Karen Cunningham.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and the League of Women Voters for hosting us this evening. It has been my honor to serve you on the City Council for the last 3 years, and then 7 years on the Planning Commission before that. I wasn't sure that I was going to like the job that I have on the City Council, but I have certainly grown to love it. When I first moved to Brisbane in 1994, I was a solo parent of a 3-year-old who also worked from home. So I understand the challenges that many of our families are facing in 2020. To say that this has been a tough year is an understatement at the very least, but we're fortunate enough to live in a small community that is very supportive of each other. Not only that, we live in a small community, being our county as well, which has given us a lot of support to our community members throughout this year. And I'm very proud to say that I think we are so lucky to live in San Mateo County, and even luckier to live in our little town of Brisbane. But Brisbane is no longer a sequestered little town. All eyes are on us, and there are those out there who would love to take away our local control. That's one of the things that I've been fiercely working on to protect us from outsiders, and if re-elected, I will be working very hard to do that one more time. I'm a team player, have always been a team player, and work really well in the community and the county with the 16 boards, commissions, and subcommittees that I currently serve on. It's a big job. It's a lot bigger than I thought, but I really love it. And we have great allies now throughout the county who are going to help us stay as independent as possible. And we need to have those great relationships moving forward, so we will always stay as independent as possible. And that is a big goal for me, is for Brisbane to keep local control at every level. Thank you, and I yield my time back to
Thank you.
Cliff.
And last but not least, Cliff Lutz.
Hey, good evening, everyone. First, I want to just thank the Brisbane Chamber of Commerce and the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's candidate forum. I've been living in Brisbane for the past 31 years, 19 of which I have served as a public servant in our community. It's amazing how time flies when you enjoy the work. And that's really the reason why I am running for re-election, because I sincerely love the work of being a public servant. Not a day goes by when I'm not thinking about how I can help our city, whether it's from an environmental perspective or a social equity one, or just dealing with the economics of making sure that our city has the revenues to provide the programs and the services that keep us healthy, safe, and having fun. During the past 11 years on the City Council, I've had the privilege to take on many lead roles, from helping our city deal with the Great Recession, when we put forth an economic development plan, pushing for priority-based budgeting so that we have greater accountability and transparency for how we spend taxpayer dollars. I was also, took a lead role in helping to create the sustainability framework so that the Baylands achieves high sustainability goals, such as a zero carbon development, using 100% alternative energy, much of which will be generated on site, zero wasting of water, building an efficient transportation system so the Baylands is not a huge traffic jam when they start developing the site. Also putting forth strategies that provide educational revenue for all children of our area, creating great open space opportunities. And of course, the most important, making sure that the site is remediated to the highest standards that are required in our general plan. As a council member, I strive to be a good listener, be open-minded, and take a balanced approach to all decision-making. Though we do live in a small town, we do have quite a diverse population, which brings a diverse perspective and ideas. I feel we are at our best when the public is empowered to take an active role to determine the most important decisions in our community. All voices need to be heard with respect and dignity. I look forward to your questions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it is time for the candidates to answer questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the question. I will vary the order in which the candidates are called on to speak. The first question will be directed first to Karen Cunningham. And I'm going to begin with a question on something that affects us all, and that's COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused a fiscal crisis at all levels of government. Many cities are facing budget deficits of historic proportions, forcing significant cuts and posing difficult choices. Which budget item would you cut first, and which one would you prioritize for continued or even increased funding, and why? Karen?
Okay, there we go. COVID-19, yes, what a disaster, and it was a completely avoidable disaster, which is really sad. One of the things relative to our budget that if we had to cut anything would be probably our recreational uses, and COVID-19 has cut that anyway, so huge amounts of money that we would otherwise have spent on a day in the park is around $30,000. That's already out of the budget, so that's very helpful. One of the things I will say is that our budget is in pretty good shape, even though we're definitely going to take a hit financially from COVID-19. And I'm very proud to say that we'll do a hiring freeze, we'll probably do a wage freeze, which will be really helpful. If we need to spend more money in the community relative to assisting our folks, that's the thing that we will have to do. And we're already doing that relative to meals and various other ways that we're helping throughout the Lions Club. And we'll see how that goes moving forward. One thing that we have not done in at least 22 years, and in the last recession, we did not have to lay off any staff. So that's a very important part of what we'll be doing moving forward, is not laying off our staff, cutting our budget, and...
Your time is up.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Your time is up.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry. The sign was up there for a while.
I can't see the sign.
You can't see it with Caroline in gallery.
No, she must be off to the right. I couldn't see it.
Can you click your arrow maybe so that you can view her?
Okay, now I can see her.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. I'm sorry about that. If you need me to repeat the question, please feel free to ask. The next speaker will be Cliff Lentz.
All right. So, during the last recession, the Great Recession, the city had built up significant reserves. And because of that, we were able to ride out that recession without laying off a single employee. For this recession, yes, we are taking a hit, to our revenues, but just like previous councils, this council has built up a significant reserve, even more so than the last one. And so I do not see us laying off anyone. And, the employees, they represent the programs and the services that we all use and expect to have. And so, with revenues coming in a little bit better now than what they were when the pandemic first hit, I see us riding out the storm without any programs being cut.
Thank you. We will now hear from Colleen Mackin.
There we go. First of all, I want to applaud the efforts of Brisbane to reach out to residents who needed assistance all along during this pandemic. That's families suffering food shortages and homebound seniors. There's obviously no certainties how long we'll continue in the pandemic, so the financial implications to Brisbane are real. We're going to have to be ready to adapt to pretty rapidly changing circumstances. Our hotels are taking a hit, and it's really hard to tell how it all shake out. I would make preserving city services a priority. As you may have heard, there's no city employees that have been let go, but some have been furloughed. Obvious move, which Councilmember Cunningham had mentioned is taking the funds that are earmarked for recreation. Those can be used to save critical city services. And as the 2007-2008 financial crisis, we'll get through this.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jason Noonan.
Thanks so much. We were fortunate to go over this topic in meeting with Clay in the candidates night, and Colleen and Councilman Karen were both there. And I was really impressed that the city manager seems to have a very smart grasp of the finances. He did a couple of smart things. He's short 1 or 2 employees and is not hired right now. So he's just running short on purpose so as not to have to lay anybody off. And I think that's great. I think it's wonderful because that's part of our town culture, is having long-serving folks working with us. Most of my answers would echo what Councilman Cunningham and Councilman Lentz said. And I think I'd also like to commend, in terms of COVID, the communications department doing such a good job keeping us all connected during this difficult time. Thanks.
Thank you. And Arthur.
I'm sorry, I just cleared my throat. It's my time now?
Yes, Arthur's. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, there's no doubt that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought many changes to our nation. The question is which budget should be cut or need to be cut during this pandemic. Well, I attended the orientation. I think Clay and City Council have done a good job to manage the budget. And personally, I don't want to see the city manager or the city council lay off anyone. And we're gonna go through this. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will go first to Colleen. What do you think is the best course forward for the Brisbane community for development of the Baylands? Please explain how your perspective on the proposed mixed-use development fits into this vision. Colleen?
Baylands is a complicated issue right now because it also depends a lot on what takes place with high-speed rail. And I look at the Baylands as a mixed bag because it's really also an opportunity. You know, one of the things that's constantly being talked about is low-income housing and affordable housing. And when we come to a final development agreement with the people at UPC, we have an opportunity to say, this is where we want affordable housing, and say how much we want. There's very few other places and other developments that we can do that. So I would hope that we can see a vital neighborhood just like our existing neighborhoods, and that it can be something we'll be proud of. There's been a lot of work put into it, and I'm very hopeful for it.
Thank you. Cliff?
Anne, can you repeat the question again, please?
Yes. What do you think is the best course forward for the Brisbane community for development of the Baylands? Please explain how your perspective on the proposed mixed-use development fits into this vision.
Yeah, so, you know, when we passed Measure JJ, that was a tough time for the community. We really had to make a hard decision, and thank goodness we did pass Measure JJ so that we could provide local control over this site. As we move forward in the next couple of years, the developer will put forth a specific plan, and then we will negotiate a development agreement. You know, I do hope that we look at this community that we will be designing and planning for to be one community with us. And so it's going to take a lot of work on our part, but the Baylands has to be Brisbane's vision. And the only way to do that is to have great public participation in the planning process.
Thank you. Karen?
Thank you. Yes, with the passing measure of Measure JJ, we We do retain full control of the Baylands at this point, and I can only encourage our residents to be part of the design process. Your vision, what do you want? That's what we need to know. We need to know, what's in the back of your mind. If we don't have a vision, then nothing can become a reality. So this is the time for everybody in town, not just the city council, but every single person, to think about what they want to see and how they want to see it done. Yes, it's going to be the perfect time for us to be thinking of the smaller homes that will be more affordable out there, but bring those visions forward and bring them to us as soon as possible so we can start making plans like that. I've had my vision for a long time, a linear park meandering out there and, past maybe a high school, past recreational facilities, accessible to everybody. And, basically that's my vision, but I need to know everybody else's vision, and the mixed use is going to be there somehow. It's up to us to define it.
Arthur?
Thank you. My major concern about Bayland is the pollution and how safe it is to build anything on it. And the second concern is that if we're not doing anything else, not to say, because I remember the city passed a general plan already. My major concern is that if we are not doing anything at all, then the state will come in and take over. And we're gonna start losing control, to manage a city. And I echo Councilor Cunningham. I need to have the mountaineers to come in and participate in the decision making as how they want the Bayland to be, and this is their city, and not just the city council decision how the city or how the Bayland is going to look like. And as I said again, we have to work together in unity and solidarity to make Brisbane a brighter community. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will go to Jason first. How do you propose making our canyons and housing areas safe from wildfires?
It's an excellent question. Obviously, a very big part of my decision to run is involved with the use of the mountain. You read the statistics and you read that something like 90% of the fires that are touched off are human related, either in electricals or even the strange situation a year or so ago when someone was trying to take out a wasp nest and a spark from a hammer and a chisel set off a fire. So for me, keeping that wildlife and urban interface as wide as possible is super important, and why I'm opposed to developing the lower acres. I think that's a great first step in terms of making good with the folks that own the lower acres. I read that PG&E has programs to increase the interface and give them more width and safety, and I think we should explore that along with the trusts and parks to see if we can make that free for all to use. Thanks.
Thank you. Colleen?
I think first we need to re-examine our previous assumptions about our fire danger here, because we've learned so much in the past 2 years, and this isn't going away. Brisbane was leveled twice. I don't know if people know that. First in 1918 and then in 1929, and we've had subsequent fires. So it's not just the mountain. Fire creates its own climate, so the lowlands in Brisbane are just as equally vulnerable. I think we need to create defensible buffers, and I'd like to see this be a community conversation. There's a lot of aspects to discuss, removal of highly flammable species of trees, vegetation, and also evacuation measures are a good start to this. This really needs to be a priority, in my opinion. I think we all have lives and property at risk.
Thank you. Arthur?
Well, we need to sit down with the city manager and the fire department as to see what the safer revenue to help the city of Brisbane to deter a natural disaster. And I'm sure that the city has some plan to clear some vegetation on the mountains and around the area already. So again, I agree with Colleen. I want to hear the community to come together and to talk more about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Cliff?
That's an excellent question. This is a concern that many times, keeps me awake. And, if we had multiple fires going on at the same time in our area, resources could get stretched very thin. Fortunately, we do have an excellent relationship with the North County Fire Association, with us, Daly City and Pacifica. And if there was a need for further backup, South City and San Bruno. So there is a strong network. But again, if there is multiple fires in our area and in other areas, we could be in trouble. So we have to take progressive actions, which we need to reduce our fire load, taking down these eucalyptus trees. We need to have a smart evacuation plan that we do, every year.
Thank you. And Karen.
So we've had some preliminary conversations in one of the boards that I sit on regarding, the future of wildland safety. And in Brisbane, we've got two situations. We've got the mountain interface, and then on the eastern side, we've got private property. So our perimeter properties really need to be looked at very, very hard, and what we should be doing moving forward. One of the things that I have proposed is that we stop having property owners who are absentee landlords and do very little to nothing to stop the invasion of species that are flammable and really take care of their land. And then on the other side, we've got the forest. We've got the top of the mountain with all that eucalyptus. And unfortunately, it's $10,000 a tree to cut them down. So, it's a big deal, especially with the fires right now.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Arthur first. The development of the high-speed rail yard will impact city residents significantly during construction and also after completion. What is your position on that construction, and what has your involvement been with that project?
Thank you, Anne, for the question. Personally, I care for the safety of Brisbane. If I detect any danger at all that impact our city, I would vote no for the speed rail. But then again, it's about safety. Is it safe enough to bring such a high-speed rail into a city? Is it going to create a nuisance in a city? Because last time I talked to some community member, they said the state want to build a facility to maintain this train in a city on the east side. And imagine if they store the trains at the facility, how much noises they are going to create. And of course, we need to talk to the community about this, and we need to further study about the speed rail. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen? I think you need to turn on your muted.
Okay, got it.
Here we go.
So the question assumes that high-speed rail is a done deal in Brisbane, and it's not. There was a proposal put forward with a fatally flawed plan that we sent back to high-speed rail for them to come back and talk to us again. The whole idea of light maintenance rail yard out on the Baylands that would operate 365 days a year, 24/7, would bring unimaginable noise and pollution to Brisbane. The people living on the Northeast Ridge would get no piece at all. So I am not in favour as it stands, and they're going to have to come back to us and we'll see what happens.
Thank you. Jason?
I would pretty much echo what Councilman Cunningham said. I've talked to a lot of folks, and golly, it's a complex issue because we do want to put people on public transportation. We do want to cut back on the environmental impact of cars. On the other hand, exactly what Councilman Cunningham said, the noise, possible pollution, it's such a difficult one. I would absolutely back the city's response right now that it's not for us for right now. And if it helps at all, I've talked to some kind of nerdy people I know in engineering. They've said the technology's already outmoded. It's not going to matter. It's not great technology right now anyway. Thanks.
Okay. Jason, I was informed that I did not give you the opportunity to answer the question on the wildfires. Would you like to go ahead and do that now?
You could. I thought, what am I, chopped liver?
I'm sorry.
Could you rephrase the question for me? Because I was getting ready to answer high speed.
Yes. How do you propose making our canyons and housing areas safe from wildfires?
Oh, didn't I answer that about the urban wildlife buffer?
I think it was the Baylands question.
Oh, the Baylands question. Okay, I'm sorry. What do you think is the best course forward for the Brisbane community for development of the Baylands? Please explain how your perspective on the proposed mixed-use development fits into this vision.
Another complex one. We don't like issues unless they're complex here at Brisbane. We only go with the best. My feelings were closest to Colleen Mackin's there. I think JJ happened as I talked to voters today. For some folks, the feelings are raw, like the election was yesterday, which it clearly wasn't. But the election happened. It is what it is. And I think gathering people together and finding what's on their minds, what's the best deal for us here? And let's really listen to people, because there are people feeling like, God, I lost. And, I don't think they did lose. I think there is a great vision there. And instead of looking at it as a lemon, let's look at it as lemonade. Where can we put affordable housing? This could be part of the solution. Thanks.
Thank you. Colleen, we're going to go back to high-speed rail, and I'll repeat the question. The development of the high-speed rail yard will impact city residents significantly during construction and also after completion. What is your position on that construction, and what has your involvement been with that project?
I've heard several of the workshops done by High Speed Rail, and the City Council's response to the draft environmental impact pointed out significant impacts that were overlooked in that. If you talk to residents who lived here years ago when there was an active rail yard operating 24/7, they'll tell you about hearing the noise all night. And let's not forget their proposal includes tearing down our bridge, our fire station, and moving the entrance to town. These are not small things. Once again, it's San Francisco's trying to move what it doesn't want over to Brisbane, and now it's a rail yard. High-speed rail, DEIR, it's really poorly thought out. That's valuable land, and it's no regard to the impacts, including there's glaring omissions of how they'll deal with the impact of sea level rise when they need those tracks at present grade. So I think there's a lot more we're going to see about this.
Thank you. And Cliff.
So, like many people, I voted for high-speed rail to happen in California, but I never voted for a high-speed rail yard in Brisbane. We used to have a rail yard, and it caused blight for the last 100 or so years. And having a new rail yard will continue that blight in perpetuity. As people have talked about, there's been a draft EIR from high-speed rail, and our staff and consultants have said that is the worst, by far, draft EIR for a large-scale project that they had ever seen. Imagine having to make the rail yard the same grade as the current tracks. That means removing a mountain of dirt and a mountain of garbage, and that is just an environmental disaster. And so that also, all that work is going to have a price tag of about $1 billion. It's silly. and we just need to stay focused and do what we want to do for that site.
Thank you. The next question will go to Jason first. To fight climate change, what would you suggest as a priority for City Council action?
Golly. Okay. I think anything and everything that we can nudge people towards electric and away from internal combustion engines is great. I'm super proud as I sat in on some of the speaking about Baylands that the stance that Brisbane has taken against natural gas and putting caps on it being included in households. So much of our environment is chewed up by natural gas that escapes unintended. Nudging people towards the electric use, I think are our best ways to go. It seems more of a state and national issue, but I guess we have to think locally in absolutely everything. So I would say minimizing natural gas, minimizing internal combustion machines.
Thank you. Arthur?
Thank you. Well, my position running for City Council is about the cleaner Brisbane, healthy Brisbane. With that said, I agree with what Jason just pointed out. We should, as a nation and as the world, we should moving toward the electric use and try to minimize the material that is such a plastic, and also maintain, what considers combustible materials, within our nation and as well as around the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire? Cliff?
Hi, could you repeat the question again? Sorry.
Sure. To fight climate change, what would you suggest as a priority for City Council action?
All right. Well, the biggest impact that we can make in regards to climate change is putting forth a development in Baylands that is zero carbon, that we require that all energy use in the Baylands is alternative energy. If we cannot, or if that development cannot produce all of its own energy, then it needs to purchase it from Peninsula Clean Energy. And so by doing that, we'll make a significant dent in greenhouse gas emissions. Also, we need to have a multimodal station that efficiently captures all of the public transportation modes that the Baylands currently could have. And that requires, political will, not just from our own city, but all the transit agencies in the area, including MTC.
Thank you. Karen?
Okay, so solar has become so much cheaper in the last 5 years and so much more efficient that I think a lot more people are going to be using solar, and we're encouraging it. Keeping gas to a minimum right now. A lot of the new homes that are going to be going in will be all wired for electric ovens and electric stoves, which is where it's going in the future, and that's going to save us a lot. Yes, we are leaking a lot of gas. We're going to have zero emissions out on the Baylands. And then there's another part of this. I think the whole work from home piece of this is keeping a lot of cars off the road right now. We've got a lot more birds that are singing. We're hearing a lot more from them, which means the air is cleaner. And so from that perspective, it's a big win for us to be working from home as much as possible as well. So there you go. Thanks.
Thank you. Colleen?
It's a really good question. I think one thing to remember is with climate change, very small changes really add up and make a difference. Just as an example, if we had every residence in Brisbane put dimmers on their light switches, it would really save a lot of energy. We've got lots of people working at home. But I think Brisbane has done a good job demonstrating a commitment to sustainability, which is part of dealing with climate change. And we're going to need to continue to promote LEED building construction and operation, and also maybe REACH codes. And I know we looked at REACH codes with the Planning Commission, and I know the Council has with regard to commercial buildings. And it may be something that we want to do even with residences, because we're going to have to totally reduce energy and water consumption. It's not going to go away.
Thank you. This next question will go to Karen first. How will you represent Brisbane's values to the regional and state agencies in regards to housing and transportation?
Could you repeat that question, please?
Yeah. How will you represent Brisbane's values to the regional and state agencies in regards to housing and transportation?
Interesting question.
Yeah.
So we are striving to go electric in California. We are striving to go electric just about everywhere. So our transportation conversations moving forward are around electric vehicles. They're around electric shuttles. They're around driverless shuttles moving forward. We're hoping to, say for the Baylands, have driverless electric shuttles running out through the Baylands and through Brisbane. So they're the things that are on our plate right now. And talking to the state, we can only request that they hurry all of this along and make it financially feasible for us to do these kind of things. So from that perspective, I think it's quite an odd question actually, but so that there's my best stab at that answer.
Thank you. Cliff.
So in regards to transportation, we definitely need to work with all of our transit agencies. Currently, I'm the chair of commute.org and pushing hard to make sure that not only do we have all the modes of public transportation that are accessible to the Baylands, but also then tying all of those transportation modes to a very efficient shuttle system that serves not just the Baylands, but also Central Brisbane, the Ridge, Bayshore, Visitation Valley, Little Hollywood, and Hunters Point. In regards to housing, I've gone to 2 meetings, MTC ABAG, to address our 2050, our Plan Bay Area 2050 allocation. Right now, they're looking at 10,000 housing units for Brisbane. I recently put together a meeting with our county representatives and MTC ABAG staff to say, you can't do that. They're addressing sites that should never have housing, and we're going to reduce that impact that they're applying from us.
Thank you. Colleen?
I think it's important for us to convey really clearly to all of our neighbors in the state that many of the impacts we suffer from and are going to suffer from are from all the development around us, which we have no say, we have no control. Many times they don't even let us give any input. And public transit comes into bearing. Now we've got everyone working at home. How will this all pan out? We really don't know. But we do have the Baylands, which is Brisbane, and we do have plans there for a multimodal terminal. So I think we need to get San Francisco and San Mateo County all working together on how to make that connected, because we lie in the middle, and if it doesn't work, both public transit and the surface transportation, we can't get home. It's that simple. It's pretty important.
Thank you. Jason.
I'm right there with Colleen about getting our neighboring communities together on the same page. There's much we cannot control, and we're being asked to deliver a lot. And I'm right there with Councilman Lentz with the 10,000 figure. It is out of this world. And if anything, we have learned in Brisbane, and I've been immersed in history books and immersed with some of the old-time locals, there's a long history of people foisting or trying to foist things off here. So our muscles should be good and flexed on how to push back and fight for what's right for us and get clear with what we need and say 10,000, I'm sorry, no, good things will come out of the Bayland if we're smart. Good things will come, but 10,000, I'm sorry. Go back to the drawing board. We need to talk. Thanks.
And Arthur.
Yeah, with respect to the public transportation, it's great to have sufficient public transportation roaming around the city of Brisbane. But personally, I think that I don't want to see any pollution. So I think it is what it is right now. And right now, since COVID-19 hit, many of us working from home and reduce the pollution in our city and as well as hopefully around the state. Now, pertaining to the housings and people talk a lot about putting affordable housing on the mainland. But then again, the word that I used previously was safety. Is it safe enough to put affordable housing or any house at all on the mainland? So I need to study a little bit further on that issues. So there you go. That's my piece on the housing.
Thank you. All right. The next question will go to Colleen first. Short-term rentals without permits continue to be a problem in our town. What recommendations would you make to help solve this problem?
Great question, and one that is near and dear to me. I think it's really disappointing that after years of meetings, both council and planning commission, we have an ordinance and now have a conspicuous lack of permit applications. If we have violators continuing to operate, then we need to have sufficient monetary consequences with some hefty fines that no longer make it profitable for them to operate. I'd suggest that if we had parking permits in the areas where the illegal STRs are operating, this will make it harder for them to continue to have unhosted listings. Residents really have clearly expressed over and over they don't consider it acceptable for the large unhosted rentals, and these are operating pretty much like hotels in their neighborhood. We have hotels in Brisbane that are bringing revenues to the city. These short-term rentals don't, so we need to crack down on it.
Thank you. Cliff?
Yeah, so recently the City Council passed an ordinance to require that all short-term rentals apply for a permit. I believe at this time, not a single property owner who operates a short-term rental has applied. And so we need to apply some teeth and be more diligent about requiring these property owners to do the right thing. I mean, none of us, break the law. This is a law. And in regards to the unhosted short-term rentals, we have some bad players out there, and unfortunately, because of them, they've made it harder for other folks who would like to follow the rules and don't have disruptions in the neighborhoods that they live in.
Thank you. Karen?
Thank you. Yes, we just passed an ordinance saying that unhosted rentals are unlawful at this point. But we do not have any applications for the hosted rentals, which is very, very disappointing, since we worked very hard to pass the short-term rental ordinance so that hosted rentals were allowed. We do have some pretty bad actors, and this is all very new. This ordinance just went through, and then it had a 30-day cooling period. So probably within the next few weeks, we'll be talking about how to deal with it. And I could only implore people who are watching who are short-term renters, come and get their applications for their permits, please. But for the people who are breaking the law, yes, I'm all for big fines. I'm done with them. They're not very good for our community at all.
And Arthur?
I heard a lot about that within a city, and they need to be compliant with the law. And if they cause problem within a city and irritate the neighbors and neighborhood in general, I think they ought to face the consequence. Thank you.
Okay. So our next question will go to Jason first. And, okay, here it is. How would you deal with parking issues that include the lack of parking in business and residential areas and unsightly non-running vehicles parked on the street?
Was I asked to respond on
Yep.
the short term?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I missed you again. I knew. Okay.
Easy one. I'm right there with Colleen and Karen on that. It's obviously an enforcement problem. We don't have a handle on how to enforce it. I think there should be fines, and we should figure out how to enforce it. Could you go ahead and repeat the parking question for me?
Yes. How would you deal with the parking issues that include the lack of parking in businesses and residential areas and unsightly, non-running vehicles parked on the street?
Yes. This is a great question, and I was so glad when I was tuned into probably the most recent council meeting, and I heard there was reference to a parking permit study had been done. I would love to review that. I'd love to see what the results were and to see if that could be finessed in such a way that people had fair access to park in front of their house. And if you've got 4, 5, 6 vehicles, is there either, can you pay proportionally more, or is there a spot that we could find that was amenable to all for the longer term parking? Because it's just become so difficult for folks to get a spot in front of their house. I think parking permits time may have come.
Thank you. Colleen.
Yeah, we're reaching a maxing out part in certain parts of central Brisbane. The Ridge doesn't seem to have the same problem. And I believe we'll need to enact permit parking, at least initially for the heavily impacted areas. I'd like to see the city create more parking near our central business district. That's becoming more problematic, and maybe explore diagonal parking on San Francisco, adjacent to the park. And there's going to be new storefronts on visitation that will most likely have housing above retail. And we need to think about overnight parking somewhere for those residents. We can consider maybe utilizing city properties as paid permitted monthly parking. That would be great. And as far as the non-running vehicles, I suggest a very quick call to code enforcement.
Thank you. Arthur.
For the long-term parking, specifically for the visitor, friend and family should get the permit for them from the city hall to park across the street or even in the in front of the house. Thank you.
All right. And Cliff?
Yeah, walking the streets of central Brisbane over the last several weeks, I've never seen the congestion of parking this bad ever. And I think because of COVID, a lot of kids are coming home, they might have a car, and so it is extremely difficult to find a parking spot in central Brisbane. People have talked about doing permits. I think we need to definitely explore that. I think we also need to encourage property owners to park in their driveways. I know a lot of folks use their garages for other things other than parking cars, and I don't have a problem with that. That's fine. But the driveway, let's use that for parking a car instead of parking your car in front of your house.
Thank you. Karen?
A topic near and dear to my heart. I've been talking about permit parking for years, and every time I brought it up over the last 10 years, I was told, oh, we've tried that before, people don't want it. But now we've got the state coming up with laws about housing that doesn't require any parking at all. So that's just going to exacerbate the problem. We've also got multi-generational families living in the same home these days. Around me, there's many homes that have multiple cars. So I'd already proposed to our city manager that, I was in favor of, bringing up the parking permit again. We haven't done that study yet, Jason. It was just a suggestion for us to do it. And then for the RVs and things like that are taking up a lot of space on our street, we've got to find a piece of property where people can park their superfluous cars, because this situation is only going to get worse moving forward. And for broken down vehicles, they need to go.
Thank you. Okay, this will be our last question, and it will be directed to Arthur first. And then we'll go on to closing statements. The question is, what is your position on retail marijuana in Brisbane?
Oh boy. Well, I don't know much about that, and to be honest with you, but if it legalized, why not? If it help people to enhance their life with respect to health and PTSD and so on and so forth, and I'm all for it.
Okay, thank you. Karen.
Okay, this is a thorny question, and I understand it. I wouldn't want my grandson walking down Visitation past a pot shop and inhaling pot at age 3. So there's a lot of parent concerns about the retail establishments in Brisbane and, where are they going to be placed? So I think that's a question that we have to continue to look at and figure out where would it be palatable, because I'm not against it, but I understand the concerns of not wanting to have retail establishments where there's going to be a lot of children. So that's a big concern, and I think we can manage that and move forward at some point.
Thank you.
And can I have a second?
Okay.
Okay, I agree with Council Cunningham, but I thought the question get to it, throughout the state in general, not specifically about a city. Yeah, like I said, I'm all for it, but it has to minimize the use. If people smoke marijuana on the sidewalk with kids walking to school, both direction, either BS or Libman, then we should talk about it. And I'm all about the safety of a community. If it causes any harm in shape or form, then we ought to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason?
The old saw about real estate is the 3 most important things: location, location, location. So I'm right with Councilman Cunningham. It's all about the location and what young people are exposed to. That said, there's a lot of money in funds that would go to Brisbane in taxes and fees. So provided these shops were put in a place that's not going to be a problem for families, money would go to pay for police and fire and a lot of good things. So given that it's legal, if Brisbane can get a piece of that, it would be a good thing if it can be done safely. Thanks.
Thank you. Colleen?
And this is definitely an issue where people have strong opinions on both sides. I don't think we want a proliferation of cannabis retail any more than we would want a proliferation of liquor stores. It's really all about striking a balance, and the key is obviously location and how many. I think this is something that we could work out. I'm very confident we can work this out.
Thank you. And Cliff?
As a council member, you need to listen to your constituents. I don't have an issue with retail cannabis if it's in the industrial park and a limited number of facilities. But I would not allow retail cannabis in the village or in the downtown. Our committee members have spoken loud and clear about that, and I agree with them. It's not; those 2 locations are not appropriate for that type of use.
Okay, thank you very much. There were some more questions, of course. Wish we had more time, but we need to move on to closing statements. And each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. And we will reverse the order from that of the opening statements. So we will begin with Cliff.
All right. So, thanks again to the Brisbane Chamber of Commerce and the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's forum. But, I also want to just put out a special thank you to all the people who participated in the forum by providing excellent questions for all of us candidates. This is what democracy is all about. 2020 has been a pivotal year in our lives. The events that are swirling all around us have created a greater sense of what democracy means and the importance to be engaged in it. We know there's a lot at stake. Your vote and your activism is powerful and will determine the destiny of our country. It will also determine the destiny of our city. Our community has done a resounding job practicing safe protocols and taking care of our most vulnerable citizens during the pandemic. A huge shout out to Sharon Boggs and the other volunteers who have kept the Brisbane COVID Response Coalition running smooth and efficient. Also a shout out to the Lions Club and our Park and Rec department for providing food to our seniors. We're getting through the pandemic the best way possible because we know how to come together. Right? It's about local government and the public when duty calls. Planning for the Baylands is happening now. There are those at the state level, outside agencies, politicians from San Francisco, and the developer, UPC, who are pushing their agenda for this development. The Baylands is in Brisbane. Thus, the vision for this site has to come from the residents of Brisbane. The Baylands should not be something that we have to do. Rather, it has to be a development that makes our lives better. By taking this approach, we also create a quality of life for our future residents who will live in Brisbane that is equal to our own. We need to put forth planning that maintains one community. We will get there by coming together. It's been an honor to engage with all of you as we strive to build a more inclusive community. I humbly ask for your vote so that I may continue to serve you on the City Council. Thank you and take care.
Thank you. Karen.
Thanks again to everybody for participating. Thanks for everybody who's watching on YouTube. And we have really had definitely the toughest year in my life is 2020. And I am so proud of everybody in our city for coming together, our city staff, all the ancillary services, as Cliff mentioned, the Lions Club, and everybody who has come together to take care of every citizen in our town. It's been extremely difficult for some people. I can only say I cannot imagine the parents who are now working from home and trying to teach their kids as well. Everybody has done an incredible job. Our teachers pivoted to make a completely online situation for education. It's just amazing what has been done in our community and in our community at large. And I'm very, very proud to be part of our City Council and be helping usher in all the new things that we had to just spin on a dime and make happen. And that can only happen in a community that really works together and feels like they're unified in their cause. So, moving forward, the biggest thing for me has always been the safety of our community. But I am very, very focused at this point on making sure that we stay and keep local control on all of our decisions, because the state senators, the state, everybody around us wants a piece of Brisbane. And from my perspective, I want that piece of Brisbane to stay in Brisbane and all decisions made by the people of Brisbane. I humbly ask for your vote and hope to serve you again for another 4 years. Thank you so much for trusting me the last 3 years. Good night.
Arthur.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Brisbane, and thank you, Anne, Caroline, Martha, Ingrid, Angel, and Madison, and all the candidates. And thank you, the League of Women Voters. I am running because I believe that we as a community can work together in unity and solidarity to build a brighter Brisbane, clean, healthy Brisbane, and manage sustainable growth while maintaining small community culture. And if you share my values, then I am your guide. I hope to earn your vote on November 3rd. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Colleen?
Thank you. Now you've heard from all of us, and you've got a tough decision to make. So will your city council in the next couple of years. What will be the future of the Baylands and the outcome of high-speed rail? How do we emerge from a pandemic and a recession with a reduction in revenues? Can we weather another fire season without getting burned? Climate change is advancing. There's pressure on water and energy resources. Sea levels are rising faster than predicted. San Francisco continues to try to impose its will on Brisbane. Can we meet housing mandates without sacrificing what we treasure most about Brisbane? These are just some of the challenges your council will face. And we're losing a proven and trusted asset on the council, Clark Conway. I'll leave you with this thought. I've been studying all the issues for a long time. I've been tested and proven that I work with all kinds of people. I listen to facts. I'm an independent thinker. I've proven that I do my homework. I come to meetings ready to be a problem solver, not just a decider. I believe in fairness and I weigh all the opinions. I also pay attention to what's not being said, since the devil's often in those details. I want to see more follow through on everything we do at City Hall. I'm prepared to start on the council and hit the ground running from day one. Please choose carefully. There's so much at stake. You have 3 votes, and I ask only for 1. Thank you to the Brisbane Chamber, candidates, and the League of Women Voters. Good night.
Thank you. And Jason.
I'd like to thank the Chamber, the League, and all my fellow candidates tonight for your great work. You know, Brisbane has an amazing fighting spirit. In the 1970s, Brisbane successfully fought the battle against San Francisco's attempt to build an incinerator to burn all their garbage in exchange for a swimming pool. Can you imagine that? Brisbane residents also fought against the plan to build a massive city hall to replace the Cozy Cove Motel and demanded a community park instead. That park is now the center of our town, giving our children a wonderful place to play and hosting concerts. 51 years ago, Brisbane fought to preserve San Bruno Mountain, stopping attempts to build large-scale housing and level the mountain for landfill. David Schooley, who supports my candidacy, was the leader of that very fight. But residents have not won every fight to preserve our small town way of life. Voters approved Proposition JJ, designed to double our population. My fellow candidates campaigned vigorously for this, saying a vote against the Baylands would mean more homes. We'll never know what would have happened in light of the pandemic, with folks now fleeing San Francisco. But we do know that our incumbents were in favor of this pro-growth measure, even though the land is likely contaminated with toxins. Brisbane has a fighting spirit, and now I'm asking you to fight for something new. I'm asking you to fight for the preservation of the lower acres of San Bruno Mountain. 30 residences will displace wildlife, cause soil erosion, and increase fire danger. Our incumbents will say we don't have the money, it can't be done, but it's been done before in Brisbane, and it was done last year in South San Francisco. A vote for me is a vote to preserve San Bruno Mountain. A vote for me is a vote to keep Brisbane beautiful. My name is Jason Newman, and I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn will now share her desktop so that you can view slides presenting important voting information for residents of San Mateo County. And here they come. Okay, so more days and more ways to vote. You can mail your ballot in the postage paid envelope. You can drop it off at a 24/7 secure county drop box. You can go to a vote center. You can go to any vote center in San Mateo County to do the following: vote in person, drop off your ballot, receive a replacement ballot if you made a mistake or the dog ate your ballot, register to vote or update registration, and vote through Election Day. Vote on an accessible ballot marketing device. Access election materials in a range of languages. Receive assistance from staff fluent in English, Spanish, Chinese, Filipino, Korean, Burmese, Hindi, and Japanese. 4 vote centers are open now, and more are set to open. 3 days before election, 45 vote centers will be open for at least 8 hours daily. On election day, all vote centers will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Slide 2 shows the locations of vote centers and drop boxes in or near Brisbane. However, you can go to any vote center in the county. So if you work in Redwood City, you can go to a vote center in Redwood City and vote there. Slide 3 provides some important links. The last day to register to vote is October 13th. However, you can go to a vote center after that date, register to vote, and vote provisionally. Your vote will be counted as soon as your registration is verified. This takes 2 to 3 days. So even on election day, you can go to the vote center and register and vote provisionally. You can verify that your ballot was received by going to Where's My Ballot on the Secretary of State's website. Slide 4 provides a link to the official voter information guide and the League of Women Voters Easy Voter Guide. For complete information on candidates, propositions, and county measures, go to the League of Women Voters Voters Edge page. Here you will find information on who is financing candidates and propositions, so you can follow the money. All the candidates have been invited to enter their information and to link to their own websites on Voters Edge. Slide 5. As citizens of the United States, we have the unique opportunity to voice our opinions on the future of America with our vote. Get your friends and families to vote so that all Americans can be heard on Tuesday, November 3rd, if not before. And once more, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization, and membership is open to both men and women 16 years and above. Join us. If you are interested in helping us increase civic participation in your community with forums such as this, go to the League of Women Voters site, www.lwv.org. Now, in conclusion, please join me in virtually applauding and thanking the candidates for coming this evening, and most importantly, for running for a seat on the Brisbane City Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The recording has stopped.